The Stanley Cup is the greatest trophy in all of sports. It has many small details and has a very interesting history. So today we'll take a look at the fascinating history of the greatest trophy in all of sports. The Stanley Cup is the oldest professional trophy in all of North America that is still being competed for. The original Stanley Cup was donated by Sir Frederick Arthur Stanley on March 18, 1892, for the purpose of being awarded to the best amateur hockey team each year. The cup was actually originally named the Dominion Hockey Challenge Cup, but the name was obviously later changed to the Stanley Cup, named after its donor. The first ever team to win the Stanley Cup, or Dominion Hockey Challenge Cup at the time, was the Montreal Amateur Athletic Association when they beat the Ottawa Generals all the way back in 1893. The Stanley Cup was able to be won by any amateur hockey team, and a team would win the cup by challenging the defending champions. It wasn't until 1926 when the Stanley Cup became exclusive to the National Hockey League. The Stanley Cup was originally just a simple silver and nickel bowl that didn't have any rings around it. They would engrave the name of the winning teams around the outside of the bowl. They eventually ran out of space on the original bowl and needed to add additional bands at the bottom. In 1926, they started to engrave every single player's name onto the cup. The Montreal Wanderers were actually the first team to do this all the way back in 1907, but it didn't become an annual tradition until 1926. The very next year, in 1927, they moved on to the next cup design. They eventually had too many names on the cup and added so many bands that the Stanley Cup ended up super tall and skinny. It really didn't look great, and I'm not a big fan at all. Fortunately, they removed some bands and made them thicker in 1948, which gave us the current design. Now you might be wondering what they do with the bands that are no longer on the cup. Well, once the bottom ring is full, they remove the top ring and add another one at the bottom. With the retired bands, they put them in the vault in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So if you go to the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, you can actually go see them, which is pretty cool. Each band holds 13 teams with 52 names max each team. This means a new ring is retired and put into the Hall of Fame every 13 years. The Stanley Cup only has 5 bands on it before they change them. The Cup has some pretty crazy stories as well. After the Montreal Canadiens won the Stanley Cup in 1924, they got a flat tire and needed to change it. Eventually, they got the tire changed, but it wasn't until they got to their actual celebration party when they realized they forgot the trophy on the side of the road. After winning the Stanley Cup with the Islanders, Clark Gillies filled up the cup with dog food and let his dog eat out of it. In 1962, the Toronto Maple Leafs had just won the Stanley Cup and were celebrating with a team bonfire. Unfortunately, one of the players somehow accidentally used the Stanley Cup as firewood and dropped the cup into the fire. The team obviously had to pay quite a bit for damages. That's not the only crazy fire-related story though. In 1941, after the Rangers won the cup, they also paid off the mortgage on Madison Square Garden. They celebrated both of these things at the same time by lighting the mortgage on fire in the Stanley Cup and putting out the fire by peeing on it. But the craziest one of them all, in my opinion, in 1905, the Ottawa Senators were celebrating with the cup when one of the players had the brilliant idea of drop-kicking the Stanley Cup into the Rideau Canal. The canal was obviously frozen at the time, and it was found the next day. To end off the video, I'll list some fun and crazy facts about the Stanley Cup. Number 1, the original Stanley Cup was bought for $48.67 in 1892, which is equivalent to over $1,600 today. Number 2, the Montreal Canadiens have the most Stanley Cup wins in history, with 24 wins and 23 in the NHL. Number 3, there are actually 3 Stanley Cups. The first one is the one that is actually presented to the players when they win, and the one that they take for their day with the cup. The second is the one displayed at the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, and the last one is the original one originally bought by Lord Stanley, which is in the vault at the Hockey Hall of Fame. Number 4, the Stanley Cup is actually really heavy at a weight of 15.5 kilograms or 34.5 pounds. Number 5, there are currently more than 3,000 different names on the Stanley Cup. Number 6. Jacques Plante won the Stanley Cup 5 different times, and his name is written differently each time, and none of them are the correct spelling. Number 7. On the display cup in the Hockey Hall of Fame, there is a name that is crossed out. Brad Aldrich was the video coach for the Chicago Blackhawks during their 2010 Cup win, which made him eligible to have his name on the cup. However, he was accused of some pretty messed up stuff, and they ended up crossing his name out. And there you have it, the history of the greatest trophy in all of sports, the Stanley Cup. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. In my opinion, this is one of the greatest videos I've ever made. I really loved making it, and I'm really happy with the end result. So yeah, that's the video, and I'll see you guys next time.